welcome back to Unimonks. My name is Padmanjali Chauhan and I'll be teaching you for the CUET history domain. Today we're going to start with the second chapter of the subject. The chapter is called Kings, Farmers and Towns. A basic introduction to the chapter. There were several developments throughout the 1500 years after the decline of the Harappan civilization. Alright, the Rig Veda was composed, agricultural settlements came up in North India, in the Deccan Plateau and in parts of Karnataka. Alright, new burial practices emerged like the erection of megaliths, alright, plus the burial of iron tools and weapons with the dead body. Burials of iron tools and weapons. Alright? Weapons. The next thing, in the 6th century BCE, there was the emergence of early states, empires and kingdoms. We're going to talk about these empires and kingdoms further into the video. Historians use inscriptions, texts, coins and visual material to sort of figure out. Historians use inscriptions, texts, coins and visual materials to accumulate the history of the time. Alright? Deciphering inscriptions. The development in Indian epigraphy took place or started actually in the 1830s. Epigraphy is the study of inscriptions. Alright? Study of inscriptions. Now, James Prinsep deciphered Kharoshti and Brahmi. Alright? He was an officer, I'll write it here, sorry. He was an officer in the mint of the East India Company, of the English East India Company. Now, there are certain inscriptions that mention a king called or titled Piyadasi. Alright? Now, from Buddhist texts, we know that by Piyadasi, they meant the king Ashoka. Alright? Scholars used inscriptions and text to reconstruct lineages of dynasties. Alright? The Mauryan dynasty, the Gupta dynasty, all of that was found out because of inscriptions. Okay? Scholars also investigated connections between political changes and social and economic developments through these inscriptions. Now, as we go further into the chapter, you'll realize that not a lot has been discovered about the ordinary people. Therefore, we can't say a lot about the economic and social developments that took place at the time. But there is sufficient information to sort of mold a history. Alright? The 16 Mahajanpadas. In the 6th century BC, early states, cities, in the 6th century BCE, we see the rise of early states and cities and the growing use of iron and the development of coinage, alright, because iron is discovered. The growth of diverse systems like Buddhism and Jainism also started taking place. This was in opposition to Hinduism, okay? Now, Buddhist and Jain texts talk about 16 Mahajanpadas. The most important ones of these 16 Mahajanpadas were Vajji, Magadha, Panchal, Kaushal, Gandhar and Avanti. Okay? Now you've heard of Panchal and Gandhar in the Mahabharata, but that's the next chapter. We'll talk about it later. Okay? Most of these Mahajanpadas were ruled by kings, but some of them were ruled by oligarchies called Ganas or Sanghas, okay? In these Ganas and Sanghas, powers were shared by Rajas, okay? Small little Rajas of little chiefdoms. You've also heard about oligarchy when you were studying the Roman Empire last year, okay? They don't explicitly mention the Roman Empire having an oligarchy, but they did have a system of oligarchy there as well. Now, this is a map of the 16 Mahajanpadas. Here we see Vajji or Vrijji, okay? We see Magad, we see Avanti, Panchal, Kaushal, Kuru and Gandhar. Okay, you know, oh, I rubbed off Gandhar, I'm sorry. Gandhar, okay? You can see how spread out these were, okay? So you can't really call this just India. That is why when we refer to these kingdoms, we call it the Indian subcontinent, not India, okay? Because if you see Gandhar is currently in Afghanistan, it's not in India anymore, okay? So when you refer to the Mahajanpads, you refer to them as a part of the Indian subcontinent, all right? Each Mahajanpad had a fortified capital, okay? Again, in the 6th century BCE, Brahmins started writing the Dharma Shastras, all right? These Dharma Shastras laid down rules for rulers and for other social categories as well, okay? They advised rulers on who to collect taxes from. For example, cultivators and traders, okay, and even artisans. Apart from this, attacking another kingdom was also considered a legitimate way of acquiring wealth, all right? Now, kingdoms that were successful in doing all of this acquired standing armies and proper bureaucracies, all right? While some others depended on militia. Now, militia is sort of a temporary army, okay? It is made up by the men that lived in those particular kingdoms, okay? And these men were not army men, all right? They were probably cultivators, they were artisans, stuff like that, all right? Basically, this was not their main source of income. Their main source of income and sustenance was something else. Now, first of the 16, Magadha, okay? Magadha, between the 6th and the 4th century BCE, became the most powerful of the Mahajanpads, okay? Now, why was this? Number one, because it was near a river. It was near Ganga and its tributaries, okay? Because of this, it had very productive agriculture, alluvial soil, obviously, right? Also, if you see Magadha, go back to the map, if you see Magadha, it also has a little bit of Jharkhand, current day Jharkhand in it, okay? Therefore, they had access to iron mines from which they extracted iron and used it to make tools and weapons, all right? They also had elephants for the army, which they found in their kingdom's jungles. And they used Ganga and its tributaries for convenient communication, right? Little boats, sailing down from the Ganga to the other kingdoms, traded with them, correct? Apart from this, it had very ambitious kings, okay? We have Bimbisar, Ajatasattu, Mahapadma, Nanda, all of them belonged to Magadha, okay? Now, the initial capital of Magadha was Rajgaha, and later it moved to Patliputra. Now, you are going to tell me down in the comments what Rajgaha and Patliputra are called currently, okay? With the growth of Magadha came the emergence of the Mauryan Empire, all right? Chandragupta Maurya was the founder of the empire. His empire extended, now I'll draw a rough map of the Indian subcontinent, okay? That's a very bad rough drawing, but you'll have to do. It extended from Afghanistan and Baluchistan all the way into Magadha, which is somewhere over here, right? His grandson Ashoka conquered Kalinga. Kalinga is Orissa over here, okay? Now, a variety of sources tell us about this empire, about this family, including archaeological finds, obviously, accounts of Megasthenes, all right? Megasthenes was a Greek ambassador to the court of Chandragupta Maurya, all right? He wrote the book Indica. Apart from that, we have Kautilya's Arthashastra, and we have mentions of the Mauryans in Buddhist, Jain, Puranic, and Sanskrit literature, okay? Now, after the war of Kalinga, Ashoka was obviously devastated, right? With all the blood and gore that came with it, okay? He was sort of repentant, okay? So Ashoka looked for peace, okay? And he wanted his subjects to do the same, okay? Live in a peaceful society. Therefore, he inscribed messages for his subjects on stone pillars like this, Okay, now you can't see the inscription here, but in this inscription, he has proclaimed Dhamma. Alright, now what were the teachings of Dhamma? Let me erase this. Dhamma talked about respecting elders, okay, respecting Brahmins, respecting other traditions and religions, etc. Okay? Apart from inscribing messages, he also sent out people called Dhamma Mahamattas, alright, that spread the word of Dhamma across his empire. Okay? This is a map of the Mauryan Empire at its peak. See, Afghanistan, Baluchistan, here we have Magadha, okay, here we have Magadha. It comes down all the way to the Deccan Plateau. The only area they haven't conquered is the south of India. Alright? Now, huge empire, but how did they administer it? They had 5 major provincial centers: Patliputra, Takshila, Ujjaini, Tosili and Suvarnagiri. Now, pause the video, go back to that map, take a physical map of India and point out all these centers. Okay, it is important for you to know where all these centers are in order to understand, alright, how the administration worked. Okay? Now, admin control was strongest near the capital and the provincial centers, obviously. Okay? Between people, traders mostly, traveled between these provincial centers, alright, for their work, obviously. Now, to ensure the safety of the travelers, they used the army, okay, so that they, while traveling between these provincial centers, they don't get attacked, okay, by dacoits or something like that. Megasthenes in Indica mentions 6 committees, okay. In Indica mentions 6 committees. 1 responsible for the navy, 1 responsible for transport and provisions, another one for the foot soldiers, another for the horses, then for the chariots and for the elephants, alright. It was very systematic, alright, not some hodgepodge game, it was very systematically administered. Now, I've talked about how important the empire was, but how important was it really? Right? We know that it was important because of the enormity of the Mauryan rulers, right? Their ideas, how powerful they were, all of that. And also because Ashoka became a symbol of peace, right? Because he was a symbol of peace, he became an inspiring figure for our nationalist movement and our nationalist leaders, right? But the empire only lasted for 150 years. That, if you look at it, is not a very long time, okay? The control across the empire wasn't uniform, right? When I told you, when we were talking about administering the empire, I talked about 5, 6 provincial centers, right? But those are spread across. There is an empire, a huge empire in the middle of all of those centers as well. So, was there equal amount of control in those centers? And lastly, by the 2nd century, we see the end of the empire, alright? People start leaving, okay? New kingdoms and chiefdoms have started emerging in the subcontinent, alright? Now, this is the end of today's lesson, okay? Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what you liked about the video. If you want more information, give me answers to the questions I asked you previously. And for more such content, subscribe to Unimonks. Thank you for watching. Bye.